Hello everybody, welcome to another Monday with Matt. I am Matt, an instructor here at the Florida Aquarium, and today we're going to be doing another drawing, and the subject today is going to be the Seastar. So first I wanted to thank our sponsor, CIBC, for helping to make these C-spans possible. And if you want to draw along, just remember you don't have to use an iPad and fancy stuff like this. You can just use a regular pencil and paper, maybe an eraser, maybe get a pen or a crayon or something like that. And let's get started. So I thought this week we'd do the Seastar because, probably some of you are out there thinking, well, Seastars are really easy to draw. And that's true. But I also wanted to do this one because maybe it's less intimidating. And then if you try and draw this one, you realize you're using the same techniques that you would use to draw some of these more complicated thing. So, of course, everybody knows how to draw a star, right? And that's just to do this. It's a basic star. And we're talking about sea stars. Now, some people call them starfish, but they're not fish. So we like to call them sea stars here at the Florida Aquarium. And the thing is, if you can draw this basic star shape, you can draw your basic sea star. This could be your framework right here. It's just that simple. It's still shapes though, right? We're still just drawing shapes. Now, here's the thing. I've got some Seastar specimens here to show you, some biofacts. And what I want to point out is that sea stars almost always have at least 5 arms. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are species with a lot more than that, but they typically have at least 5 arms. So your average star that you draw like this also has 5 points to it, or 5 arms. So we can use this and just turn it into a sea star. I'm going to make it bigger though, just so you guys have more to look at. Just like that, boom. And then for you guys, if you're on paper and pencil, you would draw this light. For me, I'm going to lighten my layer and go to another one. So now we've got this framework down. We're going to make it really, really easy. And each one of these is going to represent one of the sea star arms. And then the middle is what we call the central disc. So I'm going to change them though, because if I just drew a sea star exactly like the outline, that wouldn't look too accurate, maybe real cartoony, but most sea stars have kind of rounded arms. Now, there are a lot of different species of sea stars, and their arms are not all the same. So there's maybe one arm there. See, it's got a little bit more of a rounded tip to it. I'm going to actually make this a little thicker too, like so. And I'll just keep doing that for all of these arms on the sea star. Go, and one more over here. You can also give them a little curve like that, because sea stars, although, like my example here, these are all very straight. This species is kind of like that. But other sea stars, they tend to bend and curve. And, well, let me show you a picture. I took some pictures this morning of some of our sea stars here at the aquarium. Whoa, didn't want to put all those on yet. Spoiler alert. And here's what you've got. You've got, look, this is like curvy arms and stuff here. So sea stars don't always have this perfect sprawled out look to them, but sometimes they do. So anyway, we're back to our sea star. Now you go, well, now you're done, Matt, right? That's it. You've drawn a sea star. No. You've got to add more to this to really make it look like a sea star. And there's a lot of different things you could do. You may have noticed on my sea stars all these little knobby ridges. These guys are part of a phylum called echinoderms, which means spiny skin. So spiny skin right there. They're related to sea urchins and things like that. So what I want to do is I'm going to make this sea star have maybe some lines that go down the middle. And I'm going to give these lines a little bit of a curve like this. And that'll also help make our sea star look a little bit more 3D. Okay, there we go. I'm going to get rid of I'm going to erase our background there. And then I'm going to add some more details. So maybe I'll add some details like some of these little spikes. I'll just represent them with these little partial circles here. Now, I could draw a whole circle, and that would be okay. I'm drawing a partial circle because, like I've talked about before, having like different line weights or thicknesses can make something look more three-dimensional. So I'm going to try and make sure that opening's kind of facing the same way on all these, and it'll sort of maybe make it look like more three-dimensional bumps there. So here we go. And we'll just add all these in here. Our little Seastar bumps. One of the coolest things about Seastars are these arms. On some Seastars, they can regenerate their arms. Most Seastars, I should say, can regenerate their arms, but there are even some Seastars that, if you cut them in half, which is not a nice thing to do. You shouldn't go around cutting Seastars in half. But if you did, and there was enough of this central disc area left, each chunk could grow into a new Seastar. So that's pretty awesome. There's a story I've always heard, and I don't know how true it is, about some oyster farmers. Of course, Seastars like to eat oysters. So they had these oyster beds, and they got tired of the Seastars eating all of their oyster beds. So what they did is they caught as many of these as they could, chopped them up, and threw them back in the water. Well, they should have stayed in biology class a little bit longer, and they would have known that was a really bad idea. Okay, so now we've got some of these little spiny things here. And there's one more detail I want to add. Well, I'm going to add maybe I'll add some little spines up here on the top too. There we go. Just some random ones there. And there's one more thing I want to add to really make this a real Seastar, and that is something called the madreporite. So let me pull up my photograph here again real quick of our Seastars here at the aquarium. Maybe I'll move. Oops, there. Okay. And I want to focus on this Seastar here. You see this dark red spot here? Whenever you see Seastars, whenever you see Seastars, look for that spot. That is called the madreporite, and it's a pretty cool thing because what it does is it lets the water into their body. Now, these echinoderms don't have a skeleton made out of bones. They have sort of a hard structure on the outside of their body, but not as hard as bone. But they rely on this madreporite to get water into their body because they use what's called a water vascular system. And what that means is they need to move through hydraulics, essentially, and that's where the water goes into the madreporite. And they use those to move around these little things called tube feet, which I'm going to show you these tube feet here too. They're like little long tubes with little suction cups on the end. And they use these to move around. They use them to get their food, all sorts of things. All right, let me get back to my Seastar drawing. So now we've got our basic Seastar here. I'm going to add some color to this one. This is easy though, right? Like this is a really easy thing to draw. So I'm going to just get out, let's see, I'm going to keep it with pencil today, at least for now. And a lot of Seastars that I see are kind of an orangey color. We'll go with a traditional Seastar color. They can be other colors, like the one you saw in the picture is kind of a purpley pink, and there's blue Seastars and all kinds of different colored Seastars. We'll just kind of keep this one our normal orange color. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to color it in, make this bigger just so it goes faster. You guys don't have to sit here and watch me color a Seastar for 10 minutes. But once I get this basic color in here, so you could do this with crayon or colored pencil or paint, then we're going to add some details to make it look more three-dimensional and give it not only 3 dimensions, but maybe give it a little bit of texture. So I'm going to get a little bit darker color orange. And remember, my light's coming from up here. That's why it's blank on the top of these pieces here. So I'm going to shade it over here like this. And when you're doing shading, you want to think about what would be hidden from the light. So if the light's coming this way, what's going to be hidden from the light? It's going to be the back of these arms. And I'm being pretty casual here. I'm coloring outside the lines. That's right. I'm a rebel. Now, we've got that, maybe a little bit of shadow here. And now we're going to add some highlights. So I'm going to go back to my orange color, and I'm going to go a little bit lighter now. I see, it's hard for me to read the comments, so I apologize. I always read them afterwards. I see that that Melissa's kids are drawing with me. That's awesome. And remember, if you aren't drawing with me, you can always come back and draw. And you can pause and rewind and all that sort of thing. But if you can draw with me, that's even cooler. There we go. So we'll add a little bit of highlight here. Maybe a little bit on the top of this central disc. And if I really wanted to get fancy, I could even add a little bit of highlight to each one of these little spikes and make it even more 3D. So that's pretty basic, pretty simple Seastar. Now I'm going to do another one. So we're going to close this one out here. Go back to our black pencil. And I just wanted to kind of emphasize that Seastars do come in different shapes and sizes. Here's a different species of sea star, and look at the difference in these arms. So they're much thinner. This species still has 5, but like I said, they can have more than that. But they can be different. They can be different types. Another one that I think is really cool is this one here. Now I tried to get a picture of ours at the aquarium, but it was hiding this morning. This is called a chocolate chip cookie Seastar, or chocolate chip Seastar, and it looks like a chocolate chip cookie, right? But look at the difference. It's got these big spikes and stuff on it. So I'm going to draw a chocolate chip cookie. Is everybody hungry now for chocolate chip cookies? Draw a chocolate chip cookie Seastar here. So I'm going to start with the same general idea, but for this one, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. Instead of just drawing a star, I'm going to draw a circle. Okay, just a circle. This represents this disc in the Seastar. And then I'm going to just kind of draw these arms out like so. Now, one of the challenges to drawing things like Seastars and octopuses and stuff like that is drawing all these appendages, arms and tentacles and things like that. It can be difficult to make them the same length. You go, well, wow, how do I do that? Because you can kind of measure like this and see if they're about the same and stuff. But for like an octopus where it's really squiggly, that can be a challenge. One thing you can do is take a bit of string or something that's flexible like a string, and you can cut it to the size on your drawing of the arm of the octopus, and then you can measure it so you can make the little curvy ones and stuff, and that kind of helps out. All right, so we got our 5-armed chocolate chip Seastar, and now we're going to add some of these details. So they have these big spikes on them, and we're kind of looking straight down at this, so it's hard to draw these spikes. To draw spikes like this, you want to kind of draw a circle, but then it's got a little bit of the top where you can see it. If we were drawing a side view of a Seastar, which maybe we'll try that in a minute here, then you would draw these spikes differently. Put a little madreporite in there. The edges are kind of dark. I'm just putting these down as hints for me so I can see what I need to do when I go over this now. Looks like they have about 3 or 4 of these on there. Now, as far as I know, chocolate chip Seastars do not taste like chocolate chip cookies, but I haven't tried one, and I don't plan on trying one anytime soon. They just look like a chocolate chip cookie. All right, we're going to go to another layer now. I'm going to switch to my good old ink and brush here, and we're going to ink this. And by ink it, I just mean instead of kind of doing rough pencil lines, I'm going to make it more solid. It's going to look maybe a little bit more like a clip art or cartoon, but I think it's kind of fun to do, and it's quicker. So for these, I think it's practical. There we go. And then I'm going to just draw some hints of where these lines go. It's like they got little boots on, right? Little chocolate chip boots. And see, I'm not even necessarily paying attention to where I put these original circles. Because remember, this is just giving me a general rough idea of where I want things. And then when I'm going into the ink phase, I'm taking a little bit more time and placing things exactly where I want them. Now, if I was doing this as a longer drawing, I would take a lot more time. I'm kind of rushing through this so you guys can see several different Seastars in the amount of time that we have. Get our little chocolate chips on the top. I don't know, I'm an oatmeal raisin guy. I do like chocolate chip cookies okay, but I'm definitely more of an oatmeal raisin guy myself. What do you guys like? See if I can get this to work this week. Oh, it is working this week. Good. There we go. And now I'm going to go with a layer underneath. And we're going to make this a nice light cookie color. I see Kimbra. Hi, Kimbra. I see Kimbra is saying, was that Jay I saw in there too? Saying that I'm using a program called Procreate, which is on the iPad and also the iPhone, actually. There's a version on the iPhone, but with the iPad, if you have one that is able to use the pencil, it's really nice because you can get all this different variation and line weight and stuff like that. Now, look, that's very clip arty looking, right? But we can still add a little bit more detail by going in and adding some shading. We're just going to do some real solid color shade. Let's say the light's coming from this picture of the Seastar this time. And just adding this little bit of shading is going to help make this look a little bit more like not just a flat picture. Then maybe we'll go lighter. A little highlight right in the middle there. And I need the madreporite, right? I forgot the madreporite. Don't forget your madreporite. That's a poor choice to make. We're going to put it, see if I can see where it is on this guy. It's not super obvious, so maybe I'll just hint at it over there. I probably should do some more of these spikes because I see that they got more spikes and stuff too. Now I can also go on top of this and add a little bit of a highlight on here as well. You know, and if you do that, it'll look even more 3D. There we go. Chocolate chip cookie Seastar. Chocolate chip Seastar. How about that? Remember, if you guys draw these, to share them in this post, even if it's later on. I love going back and looking at all of the drawings that you guys have made. It makes me happy. You guys do such a good job, too. I've been blown away by the drawings that have come in. All right, let me turn this off here. What I want to do now is I want to do a different view of the Seastar. And not an upside down view, but I do want to point out these little ridges right here, these openings. This is where the 2 feet come out of. Okay, and then the mouth is right here in the middle. But we're going to do kind of a side view. So kind of picture it like this. This is why it's really nice to have something to draw from that's real rather than just looking at pictures. I mean, I can find a picture of a Seastar in the position I want, but this gives me a little bit more information about it. So to do this, it's a little bit trickier, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna pull it off here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw kind of a button shape, or you know, can you kind of imagine this is sort of a circular shape, but it's got a little bit of a bubble. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a bubble. And then I'm going to draw this arm coming off here. This arm coming off here. Now, this is where it gets a little trickier because we've got these arms going back here. This is where you want to look at your reference to get an idea. This one's not going to be as long because of something called foreshortening. So when you're looking at a picture, and in art, sometimes we exaggerate this for effect. Think about comic books when you see that big fist and then the person's much smaller. But if you look at things in real life too, perspective makes things that are further away look smaller. So we're going to do that on this, and we're going to do the same thing over here. And then we're just going to kind of hint at this last one going back like that. Now we've got our basic Seastar skeleton in there. I'm going to go put another layer on top of it. Make my pencil a little bit bigger and see if we can get some added details here. I'm going to give this a little bit more of a curve. Make this kind of flat. That's over here. And this one, I'm going to do something crazy with this. You ready for this? I'm going to make this arm come up a little bit like that. Look at that. like he's waving at you. Seastar's waving at you there. And I'm doing that because, one, I think it'll look cool. And two, I can draw the tube feet in there now. See, I can get the tube feet going in there. Little tube feet sticking out here. It could be tedious to draw tube feet. There we go. We'll put our madreporite right there. And then we'll put some lines in here so we can kind of see where this is going. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw over this, and I'm going to draw in, let's see, let's make this Seastar kind of a purple color. And I'm going to do this again. I'm going to color this one in bigger. Let's switch to my bigger pencil. And I'm actually drawing over the lines because what I want to do is I want to make this drawing where I'm not going to have that outline in black. That's just my guidelines. It's just my construction underneath. And for something like a Seastar, this can actually make it look a lot more real, or anything else really, I guess. Again, I'm going to color this kind of sloppily. The trick, though, is without these lines, you go, well, now it's just going to look like a purple blur. It's like a Barney nightmare or something, right? But for those of you that know who Barney is. But we're going to define those different shapes with different colors, lights and darks. So we're going to go add a little bit darker purple. Like that in there. Get our shading in, and we'll say our lighting's coming from sort of the top here. A lot of times the bottom of the Seastar is a lighter color. That's why I haven't colored that in yet. And now this is where I'm going to define this arm over here. See? Without the lines, you can still start to see where those are going to be. I'm going to make this kind of a pale color for underneath here. There we go. And then maybe we'll use this color for our highlights here. And again, you don't have to, I know that you can't do this. You could do this with pencil. You're just using different amounts of darkness, but you can do this with crayons or markers, something like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off these black lines, and I'm going to turn off the underneath lines too. It looks a little sloppy, but I can go in now and I can really refine it with a smaller pencil and get those lines in there, and probably add some darker lines and stuff as well. Oops. Now, I don't want to not talk about my favorite thing about Seastars, and that has to do with how they get their food. So Seastars generally, most of them like to eat things like little clams, oysters. We talked about oysters, stuff like that. So that can be tricky. If any of you have ever tried to open up one of these animals, it's still alive. It's not a nice thing to do. Don't really do that. But they're strong, and some of them are called mussels for a reason, right? So Seastars are not stronger than you or I generally. So how do they get the soft part? Because they're not going to eat the shell. So what they do is pretty interesting. What they're actually doing is they will find there's a clam right here, and they will go over it. Let me use this one. I'll go over the top of it, and as soon as that happens, the clam shut. They just like everybody make a tight fist, really tight fist. Hold that fist, and what's going to happen is after a while your muscles are going to get tired and they're going to relax a little bit. When that happens, the Seastar is going to take its tube feet. It's going to be able to open that clamshell just a little bit, not a lot, usually just a little bit, depending on the size of the clam. Then it's going to move its mouth. Remember, this is the mouth here, over the top of the clam. And this is the cool bit, okay? What they do is their stomach pushes out of their body, kind of inverts itself out of the body, goes inside the clamshell, digests the clam in its own shell, and then when it's all done, it just pulls its stomach back into its body. That's pretty cool, right? Very, very cool. Now, I wouldn't want to maybe eat with people that did that, but it's an interesting thing. Now I'm going to add some other details. This is where you can kind of make your Seastar look a little bit cooler by, instead of using black lines, I can use these white lines to make it look more like the Seastars in our no bone zone. Do the little madrepore there. That's pretty loose Seastar. Maybe I'll add a little bit more detail just to hone it in a little bit. But remember, I don't want to give it outlines, because then it's changing the type of drawing this is. But I am going to go darker though. One of the things that a lot of people, I won't say get wrong, but that they may not do, that they should probably do to help their drawings, is they don't go dark and light enough. People, and I'm guilty of this too. And what happens is your drawing looks a little bit muddy and it won't really stick out. When you're doing this though, you're going, man, that's really dark purple. I don't know if I need to go that dark. But as you keep working it, and that's the trick with doing colors like this, is just keep working it over and over again, it'll start to make sense. You just go a little bit lighter there and it'll start to look better. You want to push it in most cases, unless you're going for a muted drawing. I mean, that's okay too, if that's what you're looking for. Same with the highlights. Highlights can tell you a lot of things too. It can tell you, is this a wet, shiny thing, or is it kind of a dull structure? Let me tell you, drawing and talking, not easy. And even these lines, I'm going to push those a little bit more. I'm not looking at a reference to see what these lines look like, and I know I'm kind of not getting them exactly right here. But, take some time if you're doing this at home and really look at some Seastar pictures and stuff, and maybe we'll add some. Now, if I'm going to do these bumps, what I should do is use a darker color. Okay, so let's say I'm just going to put some bumps on this arm here, and then I'll go with maybe a lighter color here towards the side that the light's shining. Starts to make them look more 3D, and then I might even put a little highlight there, depending on what I'm going for. Now see how that's starting to look like a three-dimensional image? Pretty cool. All right, well, we are about out of time, so I am going to lay my pencil down. I do want to thank you guys for tuning in and drawing Seastars with me. Remember, tomorrow is Tuesdays with Tom, where Tom is going to sing some songs about the sea, and it'll be lots of fun. But until next time, I'll see you later.